Did you know that one of the most unexpected nations plays a key role in biblical prophecy? And it's not Israel, Egypt, or Babylon. It's Iran. That's right, modern-day Iran, once known as Persia, was divinely chosen to shape the destiny of God's people. In fact, the Bible singles out Iran in ways that will completely change how you view its past, present, and future. Stick around, because what you're about to discover will blow your mind and reshape everything you thought you knew about prophecy. Iran's biblical origin story is far more intriguing than you might think. From the lineage of Noah to the reign of Cyrus the Great, the history of the Iranians is woven into some of the most pivotal moments in biblical history. However, what is truly surprising is that God used Persia, a nation of pagan kings, to deliver Israel, rebuild the temple, and fulfill prophecies spoken centuries before they came to pass. In this video, we'll explore how the Bible reveals the origin of the Iranian people, their rise to power, and their central role in shaping both the Old Testament and prophetic visions of the future. Get ready, because what you're about to learn will change the way you see Iran, not just as a modern nation, but as a key player in God's unfolding plan for the entire world, and sets the stage for their significant role in the history of God's people. To understand Iran's biblical roots, we need to go back to the story of Noah and his descendants. After the Great Flood, Noah's three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, became the ancestors of all the nations of the earth. According to the Table of Nations in Genesis 10, one of Japheth's sons was Madai, the progenitor of the Medes. The Medes would later become closely associated with the Persians, and together, they formed the foundation of the Medo-Persian Empire. The Medes would later become closely associated with the Persians, and together, they formed the foundation of the Medo-Persian Empire, one of the most powerful empires in world history. Madai's descendants, the Medes, settled in the region that is now modern-day Iran. The Persians, emerging from the same geographical area, would later rise to prominence, but both groups shared a common Iranian ancestry. So, according to the Bible, the ancestors of the Iranians come from Japheth through Madai, which places the Iranian people in the biblical narrative from the very early post-flood history. This connection ties the Iranian people to one of the oldest genealogies in the Bible. Centuries later, we witness the rise of Persia, a kingdom that played a crucial role in the biblical narrative. The Medes and Persians formed an alliance under the leadership of Cyrus the Great, who founded the Achaemenid Empire, also known as the First Persian Empire. At its height, the Persian Empire stretched from the Indus River to North Africa, encompassing many of the major regions mentioned in the Bible, including Israel, Babylon, and Egypt. However, Persia's importance goes beyond its military and territorial power. The core significance lies in how God used Persia to fulfill his promises to the Israelites. The Babylonian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, had conquered Jerusalem in 586 BC, destroyed the temple, and exiled the people of Judah. The Israelites were held captive in Babylon for 70 years, as prophesied by Jeremiah. Then came Cyrus the Great, a Persian king who conquered Babylon in 539 BC, and with him, everything changed. The book of Ezra opens with a decree from Cyrus, allowing the Israelites to return to their land and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. This event is recorded in Ezra 1:1-4, where Cyrus declares, "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah." Cyrus, a pagan king, had been named over a century earlier by the prophet Isaiah as the one who would carry out God's will to restore Israel. Isaiah 44:28, Isaiah 45:1. In one of the most astonishing moments in biblical history, Persia, a nation outside of God's covenant, became the instrument of his redemption for his people. This marked a profound turning point for Israel and highlighted the central role of Persia in God's divine plan. One of the most notable elements of Persia's biblical legacy is the role of Cyrus the Great. In Isaiah 44:28, God refers to Cyrus by name over 150 years before his birth, calling him my shepherd, who will fulfill God's purposes. In Isaiah 45:1, Cyrus is even referred to as God's anointed, a title usually reserved for the kings of Israel. How could a foreign pagan king be called God's anointed? The answer lies in God's sovereignty and his ability to use anyone, even those outside his covenant, to accomplish his will. Cyrus's decree to allow the Jews to return and rebuild the temple wasn't just a political move. It was a prophetic fulfillment. The prophet Jeremiah had foretold that the Babylonian captivity would last 70 years, Jeremiah 25:11-12, Jeremiah 29:10, and Cyrus's rise to power marked the end of that period. The rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, under the leadership of Zerubbabel and with the blessing of Cyrus, was a key step in the restoration of Israel. God used Persia not only to defeat Babylon, the nation that had oppressed Israel, but also to facilitate Israel's rebirth as a nation. God used Persia not only to defeat Babylon, the nation that had oppressed Israel, but also to facilitate Israel's rebirth as a nation. Persia's role in biblical history doesn't end with Cyrus and the rebuilding of the temple. The Book of Esther provides another powerful example of how Persia was used by God to protect his people. During the reign of King Xerxes I, also known as Ahasuerus in the Bible, a plot was hatched by Haman, a Persian court official, to exterminate the Jews living in the empire. Haman's hatred for the Jews drove him to manipulate the king into issuing a decree that would allow their annihilation. However, through God's providence, a young Jewish woman named Esther had become the queen of Persia. Encouraged by her uncle Mordecai, Esther took a bold and dangerous step by approaching the king and revealing her Jewish identity, pleading for the survival of her people. Esther 4:14 highlights Mordecai's famous words to Esther, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther's intervention resulted in a dramatic reversal. King Xerxes, upon learning of Haman's treachery, ordered his execution, and a new decree was issued, allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. This story, recorded in the Book of Esther, is celebrated annually during the Jewish festival of Purim, as a reminder of how God used Persia, and particularly Queen Esther, to preserve the Jewish people. The story of Esther is one of divine providence and protection. Once again, Persia, though a foreign empire, became an instrument through which God's people were safeguarded. God's hand was evident throughout the story, using the Persian Empire as a backdrop for this miraculous deliverance of the Jews from annihilation. This further demonstrates that Persia, though not part of Israel's covenant, continued to play a crucial role in God's unfolding plan. Persia was not merely a passive observer, it was an active participant in ensuring the survival of Israel, a nation destined to bring forth the Messiah. The story of Persia's role in the Bible doesn't end in the past, but extends to prophetic visions about the future. The Bible doesn't just record Persia's historical role, it also places Persia at the heart of prophecies about the rise and fall of world empires and God's ultimate plan for humanity. One of the most powerful examples of this is found in the book of Daniel. Daniel, a Jewish prophet who lived during the Babylonian exile, served in the courts of both the Babylonian and Persian empires. In the book of Daniel, we encounter several visions that reveal the rise and fall of empires, including Persia. In Daniel 2, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon dreams of a great statue made of different materials, each representing a world empire. The silver chest and arms of the statue represent the Medo-Persian Empire, which would succeed Babylon as the dominant power in the ancient world. Later, in Daniel 7, Daniel himself has a vision of 4 beasts, each representing successive empires. The second beast, a bear raised on one side, represents the Medo-Persian Empire, symbolizing its dual nature, the combined strength of the Medes and Persians. This empire would be vast, and its expansion, particularly under Cyrus, would forever alter the course of history. Another significant vision involving Persia is found in Daniel 8, where the prophet sees a ram with 2 horns, one representing the Medes and the other the Persians, charging in all directions, conquering vast territories. One horn representing the Medes and the other the Persians, charging in all directions, conquering vast territories. However, the vision also includes a goat with a prominent horn, symbolizing Greece and its king, Alexander the Great, who would eventually conquer the Persian Empire. Alexander the Great, who would eventually conquer the Persian Empire. These visions place Persia at the heart of God's prophetic timeline, showing that the empire's rise and fall were not accidents of history, but part of God's divine plan. Persia's time of influence was prophesied to give way to the rise of Greece. But it was during Persia's reign that God's people experienced deliverance and restoration, fulfilling the prophecies of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. Although the Persian Empire fell to Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC, its influence continued to be felt during the time of the New Testament. By the time of Jesus' birth, the Persian Empire had been replaced by the Greek and later Roman empires. However, the legacy of Persian culture, governance, and administration left a lasting impact on the ancient world. One of the more mysterious connections between Persia and the New Testament is the story of the Magi, the wise men who visited the infant Jesus in Matthew 2. Many scholars believe that the Magi likely came from the region of Persia and may have been Zoroastrian priests, part of an ancient religious tradition in Persia that practiced astrology and interpreting omens. The journey of the Magi to worship the newborn king of the Jews highlights Persia's enduring connection to the biblical story. Even after the fall of the Persian Empire, the wisdom traditions of Persia continued to influence the ancient Near East. It was Persian scholars who recognized the significance of the star that heralded Jesus' birth. Additionally, Persia's legacy of tolerance toward various cultures and religions set the stage for the spread of Judaism and eventually Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. The Achaemenid Persian Empire was known for allowing its subjects to maintain their religious practices, a policy that would influence later empires, including Rome. This environment of religious freedom contributed to the flourishing of Jewish communities throughout the region and laid the groundwork for the eventual spread of the gospel. As we conclude our exploration of Persia's biblical role, it's essential to consider Iran's future in light of biblical prophecy. Many scholars and theologians believe that Iran, known as Persia in biblical prophecy, will play a key role in the events of the end times. One of the most significant prophecies involving Persia is found in Ezekiel 38-39, where the prophet describes a coalition of nations that will one day come against Israel in the last days. Among these nations is Persia, which will join forces with Gog of Magog and other nations in a massive battle known as the War of Gog and Magog. This prophecy, often seen as an event yet to occur, depicts a final confrontation between the forces of evil and God's people, with Israel at the center of the conflict. While the exact nature and timing of this war remain subjects of debate, the inclusion of Persia, modern-day Iran, in this prophecy suggests that Iran's influence in the region will continue to have spiritual significance in the end times. Additionally, Daniel's prophecies about the rise and fall of empires, including Persia, point to a broader theme of God's sovereignty over the nations. Persia's role in biblical prophecy demonstrates that no empire, no matter how powerful, is beyond God's control. God raises up nations, and he brings them down, all according to his divine plan. As we witness modern-day events in the Middle East, including tensions between Iran and Israel, it's important to remember that these events are part of a much larger story, a story that began in the pages of the Bible and will culminate in the fulfillment of God's promises. The story of Persia, modern-day Iran in the Bible, is one of the most remarkable examples of how God can use even the most unlikely nations to fulfill his divine purposes. From the descendants of Japheth through Madai to the rise of Cyrus the Great, Persia played a pivotal role in biblical history. From the restoration of Israel to the protection of the Jewish people in the Book of Esther. But Persia's significance doesn't end with its historical role. The prophecies of Daniel, Isaiah, and Ezekiel remind us that Persia was part of God's larger plan, not only for the nations of the past, but for the future as well. Iran's place in biblical prophecy points to its continued role in the unfolding events leading to the end times. As we look at the modern world, particularly the tensions involving Iran and Israel, it's essential to approach these events with a biblical perspective. God's sovereignty over the nations means that every kingdom, every empire, and every leader is part of his plan. The story of Persia is a testament to the fact that God can use even foreign powers to fulfill his promises and bring about his ultimate plan for salvation. Persia, now Iran, continues to have a profound influence on the world stage, and its connection to the Bible reminds us that history is more than just the rise and fall of empires. It is the unfolding of God's plan for the redemption of his people in the world. As we conclude this deep dive into the fascinating biblical role of Persia, modern-day Iran, It's clear that this nation has been, and continues to be, a key player in God's divine plan. From ancient prophecies to end-time events, Iran's influence stretches far beyond the pages of history, reminding us of God's sovereignty over nations, kingdoms, and the unfolding of His ultimate design. If this exploration has shed new light on your understanding of biblical prophecy and Iran's pivotal role, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't miss out on future videos where we continue to unlock the mysteries of the Bible and its timeless relevance for the world today. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.